Laziness and the lazy person. Who do you look the most like? The sloth and the lazy person. Which one are you most like? God. He gave us His Word, full of doctrine. But when we talk about studying doctrine, people just start snoring because doctrine is synonymous with boring and theologically theoretical, just theory. But that's really not doctrine. But doctrine means the spiritual base or foundation that you develop all of the behavior for your life. That's why James in the first chapter says, he says, don't just be a hearer of the word, you have to practice it. Happy is the one who obeys and practices, who does the word, the things that I tell you. So Paul, in his letters, he always divides half and half. He talks in the first half of his letter, the foundation or the doctrine, the why of things, and we need to know why we do things. But then he says, because of this philosophy, this theory, this doctrine that God gave us, so this is how we need to act. So the second half of his letters is action. It's do this, don't do that, begin this, diminish this, amplify this. So there's a practical side to his letters. So whenever you become a pastor, when God called me to be a pastor, I understood that He had called me also as a teacher. When He called me against my well, really, it wasn't a great aspiration to be a pastor. I wanted to do His will, but it wasn't. I didn't think of myself as a pastor. But God also told me very clearly in the same time, but He said that you're going to be a different kind of pastor. You're going to teach practical theology. So one of our themes, one of our marks of our church, of this church, is it's theology in your running shoes. It's practical. James said if all you have is a head full of knowledge or theology, that you get proud, you get swelled up, you repel people, and you don't live the life that God wants you to live. God wants a practical life, and so we're going to talk about a practical lesson today. Many years I gave, about 18 years I taught the youth, 22 years maybe. I almost all and every week I talked to the youth and young people. And it was a lot of practical things, much less theology and a lot of practice and practical. But I realized that it needs to be to the whole church, not just to the youth. So we need practical, where the rubber meets the road, and the theology that God gives us, how it acts out in our lives. There's a philosophy, there's a base, sure. Every film has one, every movie has. It may be a socialist, it may be a communist, or it may be capitalist. But the films, the decisions, the laws, they're all going to be based upon some philosophy, or as we're going to see in a little bit. So today we're going to talk about a very practical part of our lives, and the Bible talks a lot about, just like Proverbs talks almost exclusively about practice and about what we do, action. Even as James is very practical and talks about what you need to actually do in your life, because they are sustained and they're built on top of the theology, the biblical theology, the truths, the principles, the essential truths that God has revealed to us. So today we're going to talk about the sloth and the slothful, or the lazy person, because the Bible talks a lot about the lazy person in the Old Testament and the New Testament. So it means that it's an important area for us because God emphasizes it. So whatever language that you study, if it has, that language has a lot of synonyms for that one thing, it means that that thing is important. It's very accentuated, very emphasized in that culture. Let me give you an example. So, let me give you an example. When you see that white thing that comes down in flakes, which we never see here, but in a few of the cities in South Brazil, they came down. We call it what? We call it neve, or we call it snow. Here we call it rain. Rain in a cold spell. But in Alaska, there are 8 or 10 words for snow, because there it's their life. It's 10 months out of the year are full of snow. Each, whether it's fine snow or coarse snow, each one has a different name. So the same way, when he talks so much about laziness, he knows that it's vulnerability. It's part of the curse that was very strong in our lives, and in some areas more than others. In the Bible, actually, it says even the Cretans, people who live in Crete, they're a bunch of lazy people. There are some cultures that have more of a problem with laziness. They're gonna have some cultures. We're going to talk about 20 characteristics of the lazy person, the slothful person. We're not going to talk about all of them, but we're also going to talk about how we should react. And like for COVID, when you don't want to catch COVID, then you use a mask and you wash your hands. And the Bible also tells us how not to catch laziness. So we're going to talk about that, how not to catch laziness, and what to do if you realize by these characteristics that you are lazy, and how to get rid of it, because laziness always comes associated with poverty. Laziness is always connected to poverty and misery, and God doesn't want your children, and God doesn't want your children to be poor. Pastor, are you condemning the poor? No, I'm not talking about the poor, and not all of poverty comes from laziness, but a lot of poverty does come from laziness. Sometimes God lets us go through trials to take away greed out of our life, to increase our faith, and in these moments, God will let us go through testing, and God says, help this person with financial difficulties. But God also says that if you're going through difficult financial times because you're lazy, then don't help them. So God knows that this can be a problem in our lives, and we're going to talk a lot about, because we see that it can be a problem in our lives. So the first mark of the lazy, so if the shoe fits, then just say ow, but very low. So So, but take it home with you, the lesson. So, the lazy person wants to get it without working. He wants to win without working. Proverbs 6:12 through 15. In 6, he talks about the lazy. It says, go. He says it's an individual problem. He says, go look at the ant, you sluggard. And he talks that you cross your arms and here comes poverty. And then in 12, he says the troublemaker, he's talking about a lazy person because laziness actually leads to criminality. And a villain who goes about with a corrupt mouth, he winks maliciously with his eye, signals with his feet, and motions with his fingers, who plots evil with deceit in his heart. He always stirs up conflict. Therefore, disaster will overtake him in an instant. He will suddenly be destroyed without remedy. And in 12:1, those who chase fantasies have no sense. Those who work their land will have abundant food. But those who chase fantasies have no sense. How do you say we have no sense in Amazonas? If you're watching from somewhere else in Amazonas here, there's a word that we use, leso. It means like a dummy without common sense, a little crazy. Ooh. Have you ever thought about where that word comes from? Leso. Who's ever had a sore? It's a cut. So leso means somebody who had a cut maybe in their brain, and now he has a sore in his brain. They don't connect. I think it's a very accurate word. I think you can adopt it for other parts of Brazil too, maybe Portugal. Les. It's an impacting word. So he says here, those who work their land will have abundant food. What God says is if you work, you're going to have something to eat. You're going to have profit. That's the regular, that's the norm. There are exceptions, but that's the norm that God. Those who work their land will have abundant food, but those who chase fantasies have no sense. Let's see. How does this apply in our lives? People who buy lottery tickets, they're lazy. Oh, Pastor, I'm telling you, lottery is a sin. To play the lottery is a sin. It is a sin for the Christian. Why? Because it's a sign of laziness. It's wanting to win, to gain money that you didn't work for. You want to, you get just a little bit and get a whole bunch from other people who are throwing their money away. And it's dummies playing against dummies and see who's going to win everything and other who's going to be worse off. And God gave to each one of us a machine to. Deuteronomy talks about the machine to make wealth. God gave you this machine to generate wealth. And talking about this in the philosophy, I want to open your mind a little bit today. If maybe you never thought about it, but the socialism, which is predominant in Brazil, and communism, which is a socialism that's more coercive, it believes that the wealth in the world is a fixed amount, and that the task of humanity is to try to each one get their portion. And the job of the government is to divide this wealth with equity. But it's a fixed quantity. Wealth is this. It's limited, it's bounded, it's X. And we want to divide this fixed wealth between people. But capitalism has a different philosophy. It says that the wealth is not limited. It can expand. It can grow. Actually, the Bible is the second opinion. God said that He gave you how to build wealth. It's not how to divide wealth, it's how to build it, increase it. The cake can get bigger, or the pie. This makes all the difference in the governments and how the laws are made. And this foundation, it changes, it alters society. A little for you to think about if you like to philosophize. But let's go back to the lazy person now, laziness. So the person who plays the lottery, he wants to take his machine, that is intelligence, time, and energy, and you make wealth with these three things. Our goal is to increase the production of this machine. I was talking to a young person the other day, a very interesting conversation, because sometimes we don't calculate right. We don't think right. When you go to a new job, you have to calculate how much is this going to pay per hour. You know what the minimum salary per hour is? No. A lot of times you don't know the final price that you're going to buy in 3 years by installment. 150,000 payments of 15. You don't even know what the total that you're going to pay. You don't know how much interest you're paying. But you, as a child of God, you need to be wise. You need to know. I thought this was fantastic. So this young person was looking for a house, and one person, they opened up an apartment for them. We're going to give you the apartment and pay your utilities. So, in exchange for this, you're going to need to work 3 hours a day. For us, you're going to need to make lunch and then wash dishes, and then in the evening, something like that. So, something else, maybe babysitting during the week, 3 or 4 hours. And she took it. She was wise in getting it. Why? Because calculating, you know how much she was making for 2 hours at lunch and an hour and a half in the evening, hours which are not prime hours usually, and one night per week. You know how much she was making an hour? She was making more than a minimum salary. Let's add the price of the apartment, the rent, and the utilities, and also the food she was eating. So two meals per day, at least 10 times 2 times 4, 56. Just there, it was already 560 reais. It was a good deal. And she can also work during the other time. She had a lot of free time. She could probably get a job in the other, and it's all profit. She had no expenses associated with getting there. God gave you 3 elements. What are they? Time, intelligence, and energy. You're going to produce wealth with this, and that's why God hates laziness, because it's throwing away the machine. It's leaving your machine unoccupied. So the person who plays the lottery, he wants, without working, he wants to take away from people, just like a person who robs from other people, who uses a gun. He uses a gun, but the lottery is a disgrace for a country. And I'll tell you more. Anybody who studies the lottery, and they're often run by mafia and the crime syndicates. And you know who suffers the most? Who suffers the most? The rich people? The middle class? No. The people who play most in the lottery are the people who have the least and can afford it the least. If you're lazy if you play on the lottery, in the lottery. You're lazy if you gamble to try to get ahead. The lazy person, he's always trying to trick. He's always to con. He lies. He's a con man. He's always... I knew a lazy person. Look here what he would do. He would go to work for a business, and then after a year he would create a situation so that they would fire him, and then he would take them to court and to win a lawsuit against them. He did that several times and in his life. And you know what his life is like today? Because it's a disgrace, and he's miserable because he wanted to win. He wanted to earn money without working. He hurt many people, and there are many people who use the government to try to earn money or acquire money without working. You know who the corrupt people in the capital are, and in our state? You know who they are? They're people who, as children, they were lazy because their parents never taught them to be diligent and energetic. And the lazy person is going to become a corrupt person, a criminal, a robber, a thief. He's going to play in the lottery, and he's going to have schemes. And about 2 years passed. There was something that came around. I think it was called Forex. But what was the other name? What was the scheme? The con. What was the name? Forex, something like that. I don't know. But I told people, this is a con, guys. Don't put your money. Don't invest your money. And somebody spit him up. This is a legitimate investment. One person lost 50,000, another lost 10, lost several, all kinds of people lost. Now, come and tell me, it was a con, guys. When a person says, put 500 here, and a month from here you're going to get 100%, this is a con. The country with most, where the cons are most common, is from Nigeria. If something comes from Nigeria, run from it. So, and if Paul were writing a letter today, he'd said, beware of the Nigerians. I'm sorry, Nigerians, but it's true, because people are lazy. So the lazy person tries to con. He wants to make money without working. He always wants a get-rich-quick scheme. Somebody today after the message said, Pastor, I need to talk with you because I wanted to invest in a few things. I said, no, stop. Why do you want to invest in these? Because do you want to make a lot without working? If so, it's not going to work. The philosophy is bad. The foundation is bad. It's lazy. It's laziness. And that laziness takes you to... I didn't hear you. Laziness takes you where? Poverty. Kids, where are the kids? Where are the children? Say, yeah, I'm here. Look at the beautiful kids. Who wants to be poor? Laziness leads to poverty. What? I said the other day, who wants to go to heaven? And now I say, who wants to be poor? Nobody wants, but you will be if you're lazy. Mom, Dad, it's your chance to talk to point your finger and say, see, I told you. But you will be poor if you are lazy. The pyramids. The pyramid schemes, Proverbs 13 and verse 11, the riches that last is that is built a little bit at a time. Here we say that the chicken eats a grain at a time until she fills her belly. So if you go after quick rich schemes, you're lazy. Are you going out with a guy who is full of schemes and get-rich strategies? He's lazy, and you are probably going to be poor. Number 2, second sign. The lazy doesn't work at the right moment. Proverbs 10, verse 5.
Diz assim: aquele que faz a colheita no verão é filho sensato.
He who gathers crops in summer is a prudent son, but he who sleeps during harvest is a disgraceful son.
Ainda no capítulo 20, Provérbios 20, Deus diz a mesma coisa, de outra forma. Provérbios capítulo 20, verso 4.
20, verse 4. Sluggards do not plow. Children, plowing is the way that with an ox you break up the ground so that you can plant. Sluggards do not plow in season. So at harvest time they look but find nothing. One time there's a certain time. Ecclesiastes tells us there's a time for everything. Every plant has a certain time to plant. I brought some seed from a Mexican pepper plant, and I thought, I'm going to plant it, but I forgot. And you have to plant it until June, and I planted it in November. Guess what? I don't have any Mexican pepper. You have to plant it in the right season. Every plant has its own season. You have to plant it in that right season. That's the same way with your life. Children, adolescents, and youth. This is your time to plant and invest in your future. Children, no, it's not for you to be the best video game player. This is going to generate laziness and poverty. I was talking with Pastor Sergio today. Incredible people who have been through our youth and so many word fests, and they don't remember the verses. You know why? Because they began to learn after 15 years old. The verses that you learn up until 12, you will die and you'll still remember. Even if you get Alzheimer's, you'll still remember. There was a lady I knew who didn't even remember her name, but she still could say the verses. She could say a verse for every letter of the alphabet, even until she died. She couldn't remember even how to breathe, but she could remember the verses. You understand? So this is the time, this is the season. Don't Mom and Pop, don't be enablers. Laziness comes from the curse, and it is a curse, and it's going to take you it will lead to poverty. Who wants to be poor? Then keep playing video game. Lazy. You're going to be poor. Mom and Dad, it needs to be a reward for good work done, for studies well done. It can't be the main thing. It can't be a vice. Children need to learn to plant at the right season. The time for you to learn, the easiest time to learn is up till 12 years old. For that reason, that's why the COVID has been a crime, because they don't want to send the children back to school. Because there is very little risk, but Satan wants to destroy the children. He came to destroy. And the most precious time, up until 12 years old, is being wasted. Satan knows more about psychology more than the governors many times. You have to do things at the right time, at the right season. It's not just to go out, going out and prioritizing your relationship. First of all, get a job, get a way to support yourself by studies or by profession, a job. You need to, otherwise you involve yourself with a young man or a young lady, and you don't build, you don't construct your machine, and for all your life, all of your married life is going to be misery and poverty. Always in poverty. And it's a good thing because that in the vows you say in poverty, because it's going to be in poverty. Because you didn't plant in the right season. You didn't prepare at the right time. Thirdly, the lazy, the slothful has to be sent. Everything he has to be told to do. He's not proactive. If you tell him, he'll do it. Proverbs 12:24. The diligent hands will rule, but laziness ends in forced labor. God said to Israel, if you follow my laws, that you will be the head and not the tail. And if I preach today with aggressive tone today, I'm not angry, because I have my patrimony. I actually have what I need. But I have a passion because God doesn't want you to be less than you can be. He wants to live up to your potential. He wants you to be prosperous. He wants you to be head and not tail. And I, as a pastor of God, I want you to be prosperous. I want you to have the job and not other people. I want you to be ahead. I want you to be on top, go to the top. I prioritize you. Mother and father, this is your mission. We need to give advantage to our children, not to the children of others. This is why I speak with such passion for teaching, because I want you with a glorious future and not misery and poverty, because you're lazy, because laziness was never taken out of your life and eliminated from your life. So the lazy person has to be told. That's why the slave has to be told. A few years ago, let me give you an example. There was a company that hired a young man to do gardening, to landscape, and his boss came and told him, and he saw the grass growing over the sidewalk, and he said, and he called the young man and he said, see the grass? It's growing over the edge, and here, let's get it straight and edge it. And okay, yes sir. And he takes the machine and cuts it, and he looks at it. But he looks ahead, and there's another sidewalk, and it's not. And his boss called him and says, hey, what's up? This is great, but why didn't you do that one over there? Because you didn't tell me to. That's terrible, isn't it? What was the last time? When was the last time that you washed dishes without being asked? Or you mopped or you swept without being asked? What was the last time you cleaned up that you didn't, or dusted without being asked? You're not better than he is. And you're probably earning about the same amount. Oh. Oh, my shoes are a little bit tight. You have to be proactive. Take initiative. Let's talk about our church. You have to be proactive. Don't wait for somebody to tell you. Otherwise, you're always going to be someone who's given orders. A leader is someone who sees what needs to be done and does it. He just goes, takes initiative. There's a person that I admire very much in my life. He's a simple person, and sometimes he works with me. Sometimes I need to go buy something or get something. I've never seen where I left to go buy something, and I've never seen him just sitting, waiting for me coming back. He's always doing something, even when he's not, he didn't come to do, but he's doing something. He finds something to do. Sometimes it's pulling weeds or grass or fixing things. He's proactive. He's not lazy. That's why he's never going to lack for a job and never going to lack for food for his family. This takes us to number 4. Excuse me, not the poor. The lazy person. Not all poverty comes from laziness, but most of it does. Most of poverty is the result of laziness. And you're going to see that poverty is much broader. So the lazy person never has enough. A sluggard's appetite is never filled, but the desires of the diligent are fully satisfied. He never has enough. He never has whatever he wants. He always wants more. He doesn't have enough money to pay for his light, for his water, for his rent. He's always in debt. Because he's lazy. About 2 years ago, there was a lazy person came here to the church. You just looking at him, sometimes you know. Yeah, you can say that this guy's lazy. You talk with him, and you can confirm your suspicions. He came here, wanted to be. He needed to get involved in a church, and he was talking very spiritually. And he said, I need a group. I need a small group. It's very important. He hadn't even done one with God. He's very spiritual, sounds like. So I found out where he lived, and I said, here's a small group near where you live. And I called the leader, and I said, did he go there? And I asked him, I said, where'd you go? Why didn't you go? And he said, no, I didn't go to that one. I went to one over here in the rich neighborhood, Ponta Negra. You know what? He came here and he started looking at the people, and he observed who had the best cars, who had the most money. And he began to talk with those people, and he talked with them, found out what group that they were in, and went and joined, and he started talking to the people and crying about his woes, telling his woes, how difficult his life was.
Bem no final nós botamos ele
Finally,
pra fora da
we
igreja.
finally we
Vagabundo.
asked him to leave because he was lazy, because he was a vagabond.
Porque a mãe nunca
You know what?
tirou
His parents
essa
never
preguiça
got
quando
rid
ele
of this
pequeno.
laziness when he was a child. We had another one,
Tivemos outro.
even more recent. Lazy.
Preguiçoso. E
He,
ele
he,
começou a trocar
he
de
would
real.
change
Ele
small
trocava
group,
de
small
real,
group
trocava
from
de
one to
real,
the other,
trocava de real.
and
E o
the
gerente
small
do
group,
grupo, "Pô, tô tirando
uh,
pra outro grupo,
he,
esse
he,
cara é um
he
mendigo,
just
ele
comes
vem,
and begs
ele
and he
fecha,
asks,
paga, tá
he,
enrolado com todo
he
mundo no grupo. Aí ele
borrows
vai
money
pro
and
outro
doesn't
grupo,
repay it,
e
and
assim, ele
he
já
had
tinha
already
passado
been
por
through
vários
several
grupos, pegando
small
débito
groups, and
de todo mundo. Sabe por quê?
he
Por
was
quê?
owing a bunch of
Ele
people,
é,
and what was
ele
he?
é
Because he's lazy.
preguiçoso.
You know what he said this week?
Essa semana,
He said, Pastor,
pastor,
I'm,
eu tô sentindo
I,
vontade, eu acho que eu vou
you know,
passar lá
I
pra
think I'm going to go over to Tabernacle.
Ei, irmão,
And so I gave them the heads up. I alerted them. No,
não,
you're not going over there. You're lazy.
preguiçoso.
You need to go out. Leave.
A igreja não tem
Church
lugar
isn't
pra
a place for
preguiçoso.
lazy people.
Você vai ver.
You're going to see that I'm talking Bible now.
O preguiçoso nunca tá
Lazy
bastante.
person never has enough. The sluggard appetite is never filled. Number 5.
Número 5.
The lazy person doesn't take care of his place.
Provérbios 24,
Proverbs 24,
versos 30 e
30 and
31.
31. I went past the field of a sluggard, past the vineyard of someone who has no sense.
Do homem sem juízo. Como é que a gente fala sem juízo?
How do we say it in Amazon? Oh, yeah, lezo.
Olha só. Passei pelo campo do preguiçoso, pela
Vineyard of someone who has no sense, or the lezo. Thorns had come up, or jurubeba, the local,
carrapichos. E
had come up
espinhos,
everywhere.
tiririca. Havia espinhos,
He's giving examples
havia
local.
espinhos por toda parte.
The ground was
O chão
covered with
estava
weeds,
coberto de ervas daninhas.
and the stone wall was in
Estava todo
ruins.
quebrado.
The lazy person or the
Preguiçoso não
sluggard,
cuida.
he doesn't take care of his own, doesn't take care of his own place.
Hoje à noite fica tarde quando você chegar em casa.
Tonight, it's going to be late when you get in, but tomorrow, during the day, I want you to
Você olha
look
lá
around your
pra
house
ver se
to see if
tá nascendo
there's
capim
grass
no meio
growing in the cracks between on your walkways, or there are weeds around. Years ago,
Eu trabalho
so
com inquilinato.
I've worked with renters for many years, and I have a bunch of great renters. But I'm not talking about anybody in particular. I have a few renters here, so I have to be careful. But I'm going to talk anyway. I'm going to say it. No, nobody is going to want to rent from me. About 2 months, usually, I can already tell whether they're lazy or not. If the woman is lazy or the man is lazy. After 2 months, you can tell, because when you give them the house, it's all clean and all organized, and when you see there's a few grass are growing, and there are a few people that actually need a chainsaw because they don't even have the courage to pull the little grass out as they come home, and just when they see it, when the birds poop there and leave seeds there, all you've got to do is reach down and pull it out with thumb and forefinger. When he's so small, you can just pull him out easily. And day after day, you just go past and you see a piece of trash, you don't pick it up. Lazy.
Preguiçoso.
Let's talk about the church. Can I?
Eu posso?
This is family, right?
Você
And
que está assistindo
if
na internet, se você é da igreja,
if you're on the internet and you're part of the church, then it's for you too. About 3 weeks ago,
atrás, chegou.
Sunday morning,
E aqui, nesse gramado aqui atrás,
there the rolling hills in the back there behind the baptistry. It was so much
era copo,
trash there. There were cups and
era garrafa.
bottles, and I thought
Até pensei assim, de repente, os
I thought the angels were here last night. They had a party. This was from Saturday to Sunday. But I was suspicious because God said, clean up your place because I don't want to step on the trash. If God is like that, then it must not be the angels. Maybe it's a party of demons. And after I verified the situation, I discovered that it was a party of young people. No, it wasn't demons, but it was young people. And they were doing their small groups there. And all of a sudden the services started, and they just ran off and left all their trash there. Lazy. And here at the church, we have a spirit of service that is so good. I just said, help me here. Let's clean this up. 100 people would run with me because we have the spirit of service. Or I could just say to the secretaries, and I said, get somebody to go do it. And they would. But no. But no, I wanted to discover who the young people were, because it doesn't mean anything for me just to do it. You need to learn to get rid of the laziness that will bring poverty. I don't want the young people to be poor. So, and I saw all of a sudden a father with a young lady, 8 years old, and they were picking up the trash. And you know what? This girl is not going to be lazy, and she won't be poor unless she falls for some lazy guy, some bum, because she is learning to be diligent, and the father is not going to lack for a job. So, for my joy tonight, I could have eaten there. I think that Pastor Leandro may have had a little talk with them, but I congratulate him. I congratulate him for taking out the laziness. It was laziness. There's a piece of paper, and you walk over, your cake falls, and you don't pick it up. Clean it up. Get a napkin so people won't step on it. Take care of your place. Take care of your space. Throw it in the trash if it needs to. Clean what you dirtied. If you use a tool, return it. We were looking for a ladder the other day, and when we finally found out that they had taken it way back there and left it in the parking lot instead of bringing it back, and the grass had grown around it and you couldn't even see it. That's laziness. Return your things when you borrow them. Don't step over it. And the church is the school that God gives us, because a lot of our parents didn't know how to teach us. I had the grace and the blessing to have parents who would pull your hair out if you were lazy. When I was 5 years old, if I wanted to continue living, I decided that I couldn't be lazy. But most of us have not had that father or this mother. So the church is The church is the place for you to learn to be the head and not the tail. So we're learning here, and so we need this care. We need this commitment. This is our place. This is where God comes to walk. There's no place for the lazy here. So we need to take care of our place. The lazy. You know why we don't sell gum back here? You know, where the lazy person, what he does with gum when he finishes? You think he tosses it in the trash? No. It's good for the kids. They can pick one up, put it in their mouth. So we want chairs. We put a chair on top of it, and it sticks on the gum, and that's laziness. And what does laziness bring? Poverty. Who wants to be poor? Nobody? Not yet? Parents, teach your children while they're young. Don't let your child at 2 years old and scatter all the toys and give them one toy at a time and then have him play and then put it back and exchange. Because otherwise you scatter the toys all over the room, and then they don't want to put them all together because it's a big job. This is how you teach a child to be diligent and not lazy. This begins when the child is 2 years old. You teach the child not to be lazy at 2 years old. I learned my lesson at 5 years old, and it changed my life. Look how the church is the schoolroom for God. There's a man who's very successful, and he tells the story that the transformation of his life came here. He was all energetic, and he arrived in the church, and very soon he was a leader of a small group. It's called Friendship Group, and this is about 15 years ago in the old building, and every Saturday we would have the meetings. We would be in the rooms, and he had a birthday party in his small group, and so he left it all messed up with balloons still and soft drink and the rest. It wasn't. And service time came, and everybody ran off, and the next day we were going to have seminary, and people came, and they came in, and they looked at the room, and it's a disaster. And the person who coordinated at the time, he could have just said, all right, guys, let's clean this up, and everybody, in 30 seconds, they would have taken care of it. Or they could have called the people who were doing there were a lot of ways he could have done it, but it wouldn't teach diligence. And it would continue to leave that young man and those young people, allow them to be lazy. So what did this person do? He said, hold on, guys. We're going to clean it up real soon, okay? Wait just a bit, please. Wait. And this person went and found out who had left the mess. We found out. We went to the room where he was in class already and called him. He said, what's up? What's up? Are you the one who had the party there? Yeah. Okay. You left it a mess. And there are 30 people waiting to go in the room. Come, clean it up, please. Come with me. You're going to clean it. He was red as a beet. He cleaned it up quickly, but he was so embarrassed. He cleaned it and put it in the trash. And he was sweating and so ashamed. He said, but three years later, he said, that was where my life changed. That was where I got rid of the laziness. That day, he made a decision that would never again happen to him. And he became a great businessman. Father and mother, teach your child not to be lazy, to do the things at the right time, in the right season. Let me just finish this video game. No, it's time to eat. No, it's time to wash dishes. Lazy, you're going to end in poverty, and I won't let you. I prefer to pull your hair out and you be bald than you to be lazy. You are going now. Zero tolerance. We have to get rid of the laziness. Otherwise, our children will be lazy and they will be poor. Who wants to be poor? Who wants to have poor children? Well, guess what? Some of you are training your children to be poor. You're training your child to be poor because you're not training them. You're not taking out of the laziness out of their lives. I now understand why my father, even during vacation, the normal time of getting up at our house was about 6 o'clock, so we had to be at class at 7 o'clock. You know, during vacation, it was 7 during vacation. We had to be awake by 7. He gave us a whole extra hour. Adolescent, you need to go to bed by 10 o'clock to get up early. Otherwise, you're going to end up with cancer and a bunch of sicknesses. I see this problem. People, you need to sleep. I see this in people's lives. When I ask, I'm anticipating. Let's get to the next point. I'm getting ahead of myself. Take care of your space. Number 6. The sluggard doesn't make food that he has. He doesn't prepare it. Proverbs 12:27. The lazy do not roast any game, but the diligent feed on the riches of the hunt. In Proverbs 26 and 15, he says the same thing in a different way. A sluggard buries his hand in the dish. He is too lazy to bring it back to his mouth. God is making fun of the lazy person. And laziness should be made fun of. It is ugly. It is inexcusable. What is God saying? God is saying that first, the people don't value what they have. I watch people. I ask God to help me to have a message for what you need. What you're doing well, congratulations, and you don't need to learn more. But I want to give a message of things that you need to improve in, that you need to change. I see something very bad happening, that during the pandemic, because it showed me many things, we see people and we see how people act and react. Sometimes a person has rice and a little bit of meat and maybe a tomato in their fridge, and in 20 minutes, you could make a little rice and eat, have a meal. But delivery, no. They pay 40, 45 reais for delivery. And at the end of the month, they don't have enough money to pay for light bill or to pay rent, to pay the school bills. They don't have money to pay the credit card. But delivery, the lazy person is so lazy that he doesn't take advantage of what he has. With one delivery, he could buy food for the whole week. Sometimes you have more money. Sometimes you can have times when you have the money, when you're well off, you can. But when it's just for laziness,
e mesmo na hora que você não tem,
and
você
even
bota no
when you
seu
don't
cartão,
have it and
isso é
you just put it
pecado.
on your credit card,
É isso que você tem que entender.
that's
Preguiça é
sin.
pecado.
Laziness is sin. Let's say it together.
Preguiça
Laziness
é
is sin.
pecado. Por isso que
Because
ele fala
that's why God talks about laziness. You have to
você tem
take care of your things and value them. Take care of your
as suas
things.
coisas, elas vão
They're going
durar
to
muito
last
mais
much
tempo.
longer.
Você
You're
vai
going to
poder
be able
economizar
to save a
muito
lot of money.
dinheiro.
Don't just throw things around and take care of them, maintain them. Understand that these things
Foram pagas pela
were
vida de
paid
alguém.
for by the life because somebody invested hours, they
Investiu
invested
horas,
intelligence and
inteligência,
energy
energia pra
to
adquirir
acquire
aquilo.
those.
Aquela ferramenta
That
não apareceu de qualquer,
These
qualquer
tools
jeito.
didn't just appear. It
Não
wasn't
foi uma
evolution.
evolução.
It wasn't
Não
a
foi um
miracle. It
milagre,
was
foi
somebody who
alguém que
invested.
investiu.
So
Preze
value
os seus
them.
bens.
Number 7,
Número 7. O preguiçoso não provê para sua
doesn't
família.
provide for his
1
family.
Timóteo, agora nós vamos para o Novo
So
Testamento.
1 Timothy 5:8.
Capítulo 5,
1 Timothy
verso 8.
chapter 5, verse 8. Anyone who does not provide for their relatives and especially for their own household
Sobre a família,
has denied the faith and is worse than an unbeliever. Denied the faith and is worse than an unbeliever.
não
There's no
existe
excuse
desculpa
for a man
para o homem
healthy
sadio
that doesn't take care of his family. When you married that woman and now you have children with her, before God and before the testimonies and witnesses and everybody,
você
you
decidiu,
said,
eu
I'm
vou
going to take
sustentar
care of
essa
this
pessoa.
person. I will support
Deixa
them.
de ser preguiçoso.
So don't be
Não,
lazy.
desempregado, não interessa.
God,
Eu não disse que você
I don't have a job.
desempregado.
God didn't say just
Pega uma linha,
just
pega
because
uma
you have a
linha,
job, you're
eu
going to
nunca fui pro rio que eu não pegasse um peixe.
grab a line, go to the river and start fishing. I've never been out there and not caught a fish.
O que joga
If
fora de banana,
you
de
saw
tomate,
what they
de
throw
verdura,
away
de verdura,
of
você faz
bananas and
você
fruit
faz uma
and
sopa
vegetables,
pro resto
you
da
can get enough
semana.
to make soup for the rest of the week. Don't
Deixa de
be
ser
lazy.
preguiçoso.
One of the most influential men in Christianity today was in our church. He tells this story that
Daqui, como ele
he
era
was a leader,
líder, né,
a
aparecendo,
growing leader,
a denominação dele disse, você tem que
and
fazer um doutorado, porque nós queremos
his
você
denomination
funcionário.
said, we want you to
Ele estava numa
be
igreja crescendo
become a
bastante,
doctor, become a PhD, and
e
he was growing, and he had
tinha uma boa
a
renda,
good growth, and he had
tinha
land,
renda,
and
ia comprar uma casa,
he's going to build his
construir uma
house,
casa,
and the
a
denomination
dele,
said,
não,
no,
você
you
tem que fazer um doutorado, você vai
need to
pra
go to
Califórnia,
California and
estudar,
study
você
at
vai
Fuller
fora.
University, and it's actually very expensive. And you're going to
Você
go
vai
and study there
estudar,
because we
porque nós
need
precisamos
you in the
ensinar.
seminary here.
Aí ele
So he
vendeu
sold
o
his
terreno,
land, sold his lot, left that
saiu
church,
daquela
and went to
igreja e
Fuller.
foi pro Fuller.
Got there and
Foi
started
pagar
paying the
mensalidade
monthly bills, and
e não conseguia mais falar com ele, não pagava e não conseguia mais
he
falar
he
com a
couldn't pay
denominação,
for
não
he
conseguia
ran
falar
out
com
of
ele.
money, and he couldn't talk with the denomination, and they
Uma pessoa
and
diz, olha, não vai se dinheiro
and
nenhum,
finally he got in touch with them, and they said
e ele já lá.
they told him they're not going to pay any of his bills, which they had promised, and he was already there, and his wife was getting there the next day. He went to his small room,
Os dois num
and
quartinho.
they were in both a single room, and at
Depois do
night
choro, ele ia nos
and
restaurantes, ele
he
entrava
he
nas
would
lixeiras e tirava
go
comida,
at night, and
mas não deixou
he
a
would
família
go to
dele
the
passar
dumpsters
fome.
and get the
E Deus vendo isso,
leftovers,
depois de alguns
and
meses,
God
ele
saw
fazia
that
isso.
he would not let his family go hungry, and
E o
the
seminário
seminary
pressionando ele, cara,
pressuring him to give money, and God was watching him,
denominação, tua missão não
and
mandou esse
the
dinheiro.
denomination
Qual o
didn't
problema?
send any of the money that they had promised,
Ele estava
and
decidindo
he
que
was
ele tem que
deciding
parar,
that he was going to have
uma
to
forma de voltar pro
quit
Brasil.
and go back to Brazil. But God saw
Deus
this,
viu isso.
and one
Uma
person
pessoa
who knew this
ele,
and
que era da igreja,
and
onde ele
saw
estava
him
numa escola dominical, ligou pro
and
seminário, o que estava
asked
acontecendo, porque
he he contacted him and said, "What's up?" Because he thought he seemed a little sad, and so and he told the story, and about 5 people got together, and he was supported by these 5 people, and he became the chaplain of one of the Lakers. One of the, you know why? Why all this? He was President Reagan's pastor at times, and because he wasn't lazy. So my brother, you have to support your family. If you need to go fish, but provide for your family. Number 8. The lazy talks a lot, but works little. This is why God said where there's a lot of talk that sin is not absent. Maybe it may not even be you're just wasting time sometimes. Sometimes I contract people to do I try to hire people who aren't lazy, but sometimes we'll say my cousin or my uncle, and they all come, and you see everybody working, and there's one person who's holding his tool in his hand, and he's telling jokes. And pretty soon he's contaminated the whole workforce. The lazy person likes to talk a lot and work a little. Proverbs 14 and verse 23. Proverbs 14, verse 23. All hard work brings a profit or benefit, but mere talk leads only to poverty. Why? Because it's laziness. The lazy person has a lot of talk, a lot of cheap talk, but doesn't work, doesn't produce. Talking about this, I'm gonna meddle. Now the shoe is going to be a little bit tighter. Go down in 2 sizes for a lot of women. You know what the average time that people spend today in YouTube and in Facebook, social media? 1 hour and 15 minutes without counting WhatsApp. A lot of talk. I'm going to send it to you. And little work. Now, I'm going to really mess. We're in a family. We need to change. There's a group that was created in the youth, in the women. It's women, about 22 to 28 years old. Because I don't want to talk about the 35 years old. So about 22 to 28, they're married, and they heard you need to marry somebody who's a hard worker. And so they did, and he's working like a crazy man, like a slave. And she's at home studying for some job. And when he gets home, and the house is a disaster. There are dirty dishes and dirt and disorganized, clothes all over the place. You know what she did all day long? I'll call you later. Look at this. I'm going to send it to you right away. Here. Let me send you the contact. And you spend a lot of time talking, a lot of talk and a little work. And when the husband gets home after a hard day of work, a lot of time I come down hard on the men, but sometimes today I come down on the woman because sometimes a lady has been raised as a little princess. But I feel for you, and I feel more for your husband. And he gets home and he says, but we learned in the course at the church that housework should be divided half and half. You're going to lose your husband. There's already somebody else looking at your husband. The horns are growing out of your head, you lazy person. You lazy sluggard. Pastor, how did you know? The Bible says that is done in the darkness will be revealed on the housetop. Yes, you divide the house task, and if both work outside the house all day, but if one works out, and it can be the man, but the house should be clean, that it should be a jewel with the dishes done, and don't be lazy, man or woman, and watch out for a lot of talk, whether cell phone or face-to-face. This won't pay your bills. Let's control the WhatsApp and YouTube. It has been a great provoker of laziness, and God does not like laziness. And lastly, because it's almost time to sleep, the lazy person likes to sleep. Proverbs 19, 19:15. Laziness brings on deep sleep, and the shiftless go hungry. The lazy person likes sleep. And Proverbs 26:14. 26:14. I love this proverb. As a door turns on its hinges, so a sluggard turns on his bed. I work with a lot of adolescents and a few youth, and I ask them every once in a while, and I ask them, what do you like to do in your leisure time? What's the answer? Sleep. Lazy. Lazy. And laziness leads to poverty. You need to sleep for 8 hours, but don't stay awake talking until 1 o'clock in the morning. Mother and father, you have an adolescent, take away your cell phone at 10 o'clock, especially if you have to get up at 5 or 5:30 in the morning. Your children will get sick. There are a lot of sicknesses related, and it's going to be poverty of health because it was lacking the discipline. You have to sleep, but you don't have to sleep all the time. People, your machine will not produce wealth when you're asleep. You need to sleep the sufficient time to keep your machine in perfect running order and healthy, functioning well. But after that, it's just laziness. Proverbs 6:9. The lazy person says, "Let's take a break here. Let's take a little break here." One of the laziest person I've ever seen. He's really lazy. When we were finishing the temple here, the building, he brought some people here to work with us, and I saw a bunch of young people here standing. They were all lying. You get the idea. And every hour or so, let's take a break, take a rest here. Lazy family, young people lazy. God doesn't have any room for laziness. Your life doesn't have any room for laziness. Let's stop being lazy. If you discover that you're lazy, and we still have 11 marks of a lazy person, and if you discover today that you have a little laziness in you, then begin to pray. Don't forget to check your yard, maybe between your tile. Make sure you don't have maybe some trash, maybe the sidewalk. No. That's in front of your house. And when you sell your house, are you not going to sell the space in front of it? Isn't the gutter yours too? Let's get rid of the laziness. Let's get the laziness out of our children. Let's get it out of our lives. And God will prosper you. Next week, don't miss it, because there's still 11 characteristics that we need to talk about, because we need to talk about the symptoms, and then we'll talk about the cure. Have a great week and a prosperous week without laziness. Amen.